Greetings and welcome back to CS275 Database Development. This is the last lesson using GUIs. So, like all good things, we learned the hard way on how to do all of this. Now we are going to learn the easy way, but it is very important that you learn the hard way so you understand what's going on, especially if you're going to be a programmer. And again, there are some times that it's just easier for you to manipulate the code yourself, the SQL yourself. So with that, we are going to use a GUI to create a table. We are going to use the GUI to add a row, right? We'll understand how to connect, what it looks like, how to interact with it, right? Basically how to manipulate everything, create your own database from scratch with a GUI, and then add the tables and everything you need for that. So what is a GUI? Well, it's just a graphical user interface, right? Graphical user interface, which makes it easy, right? And all that means is you can click on something, right? It's a picture, graphic. You can see it, you can use it to interface with the database, and we'll see some examples shortly. One of the ones that we're going to use is MySQL Workbench. This is what you might have already installed. If not, we'll kind of go over how to do that as well. There's bunch of other just ones, but they all have this concept where you can access it and then see it as a GUI, not in that black and white text. And then there's a web one. So if you are a web programmer and you are manipulating it across the web, so I actually use this with my personal web server. This is how I add, create tables, databases, and so on. So as mentioned, we're going to focus on MySQL Workbench. The concepts are pretty much the same. You have the GUI, you can see it, it's all kind of there for you to work through with. And we're going to jump right in the demo. Now, the first thing I want to show first, though, is if you don't have it installed, when you installed the server, it should have had the installer as well. So if you don't have the MySQL Workbench, you should just be able to add it, find it, and then basically pretty much you use the username and password that you created for the server. And really at the end of the day, the shell connects to this server. The workbench, which we'll see in a little bit, it connects to this server, right? The server is the thing that holds all the files, interacts, runs the queries, and as a program, it needs to be running. So that is something that's important about MySQL. And SQL Server, a lot of the major servers are an actual program that takes the commands, runs them, gives you features, stuff like that. There are other SQL things like SQLite. That is slightly different, it's just a file. But that's kind of a summary. Now that we're kind of getting into the GUI, a little bit more how this interacts, we're really getting into the nuts and bolts of the system, and not just, how does SQL work, right? All of this was how SQL works, the commands that get you in and out. But at the end of the day, it is a program, and you can connect to it a bunch of different ways, including, as we've mentioned with this, through the web, right? The web can have an interface. You can go onto Google. I mean, this is just Chrome, right? Well, I guess it's technically Firefox, but and you interact with it, right? So let's go ahead and, as I mentioned, go to the demo. All right, we're going to go over some basics of using the MySQL Workbench and things you need to know to do stuff for the project and the research. So with this, I have a few things kind of already open, but this is mostly how it starts. So when you click on the Workbench, you'll see all of this in administration, which, again, if you go into the database development, you'll work more with this, user privileges and all of that's going to be really important when we start programming and all of that and building stuff, who can access, who can change. But what we're really focused on, again, is the basics, right? So if you click on Schemas, you essentially get to your databases, right? These are your databases. You'll notice that we have the database that we've been working on, right? If you followed along, you have your library database, you have your user info database. Now, you may not have this one. This is what I've been using for all of my examples, all of my lessons. So this is what we're going to deal with. But your library, and it's important that you do have this because you'll use this for your research and your project, right? This database here. But here's our database, right? This is the point of the GUIs. You can see everything nice and neat. So if I want to, look at this, right, I can right click on any of these and they give you different items. So let's go ahead and look at Doge. We can send all of these different insert, update statements, right? So I do my select all. Now you'll notice this is the code that we're used to, right? Slight differences. They do make it so it's user friendly, right? So because they quotes if you have spaces, right? Technically, I could just put star here, right? If you remember, this command is the same, and I could just put Doge, right? This is the command that you're used to, but at the end of the day, it's the same, right? This gives me all of the Doge commands. You'll notice I've added an extra dog to this when I was playing around with it. But again, here is an example of this. So I'm going to kind of work my way from the bottom up. So how you add a new row, right? If I already have this set up, there's many different ways. I mean, I showed you could also do the insert statement and get that kind of set up. Or this is a GUI, right? This is the point of a GUI. So I am going to say that owner 2, which I think is Jane, right? That she has a new dog, and I'm going to call it Doggy. And then let's say the age is 2, right? Now I didn't put this here because, right, these are auto incrementing. This is the ID column. So when I click apply, it gives us that code, right? It didn't do anything, right? It's going to run the code. So if I want to say the dog is 3, even though I typed whatever over here, and I click apply and finish, it says 3 now, right? And auto updated. So again, all it does is it runs this code. That's all it does. Now it can use to build it, but everything in here is code. So if I go back here and I run my, so I got a lot of code, my Doge table, right? You'll see that I've added the new thing to it, right? Doggy is now there. And again, as a reminder, this is the shell, this is the workbench. They're both connecting to this server, right? So this right here is not the server. This right here is not the server. They both connect to the server, right? They connect to it. And all they do is they run whatever command on the server. And then in this case, it shows it up here. In this case, it's showing it right here. So hopefully you're understanding these concepts as we go through this. Next, let's look at, again, going up, added a row to this. We showed you update. I mean, if you wanted to run any of those different pieces, if you wanted to update this, say Daisy just turned 2, click apply, and then it's going to run the update command for you, right? So again, that's really nice about the GUIs. You can change stuff right in here. But what if we want a new table? All right, well, let's go to tables and we'll click on create table. We can give it a new name. Remember, don't add spaces. That is why they put all those quotation marks around everything. But here we go. This is the ID column. Right? It's an integer. It's the primary key. It's not null. We want it to be unique, right? And we want it to auto increment, right? We want it to go up automatically, right? That's what the primary key does. And then we could just add new columns, right? And that's what it did. It gave it a name. You can go double click in it, change it to whatever you want. And then whatever you need to do to it. Is it unique, not null, whatever. And then, again, just add everything you need. These are more advanced features that you can give to stuff. But when you're done creating the table, I have 2 columns there, apply. Okay, so it automatically did that for me. It was whining that I put an uppercase in the table name. You can't put uppercase at the table name. Apparently I was doing that, all of that. It just automatically corrected for me. So this is the table name. This is the database is going into, and the code that you're used to. I click apply, finish, and now you'll see there is now the new name table. I can real quick select the first 1,000 rows, which was the same as just running the select all statement. And then if I need to add stuff, I didn't make those unique, so I could apply them. And there you go. Insert 2 columns, apply, finish. And now, in theory, I can do the select star from, I gotta make sure I do it, new name, a semicolon, and there you go. You can see it's now connected to that. And then finally, if you want a new database, you create a database, a new DB, apply. Alright, it's just going to create schema, create database, apply, finish, and now I have a whole new database right there, completely empty. I can start adding the tables. So we've worked our way up from adding columns to this, right, by just typing in here or using the statements that you want. We added a whole new table with the create table, right, a whole new table. You can also alter tables and stuff in here as well. And then up here, and this is also, so you got to make sure you're clicked in the right spot though. So when I click the new table, you need to make sure that you're on the right one when you're clicking new table. So be careful. That's why I used it down here, did the create table down here. So I made sure I was there. But there is the create table up here as well, and then the create database, and the create schema, which is the database, right? Your schemas. So as a recap, right, remember it's going to start off here. You're not going to have any of these things over here. And it probably will actually have this open or something. It's going to ask you for your password. That might happen quite a few times. So it might start off with something like this, and you're like, where is all that cool stuff that he just mentioned? So again, got to go to our schemas, got to run queries. And if you just start typing, it might have a blank query in there, right? It might not have anything selected. So if I just typed in the select star from, and I realize I to and sign instead, right? If you don't select a schema, right? I have a schema, but if by default it might not select one for you. So this code right away might not actually do anything. So do be cognizant. Like this is going for me because I'm in the library one. So it pulled up all this. So you can see that I even added an extra one to this when I was playing around with it. But that is kind of the summary. There's a lot of different programs, as I've already pointed out, for you to use to do this. The web servers. There's a ton of different things that you can learn about this. But Google is your friend. Just remember, we're using MySQL Workbench, so MySQL Workbench, how do you do this? How do you do that? Whatever you're trying to do. And with that, that is the end of this course. I will see you next course.